Disney Lorcana cards are more expensive than Pokemon cards. And if you don't believe me,
Ask the dishes.
what's up everybody? Rich from Rich TCG Bets here. Hope you all are having a wonderful day. If you're new to the channel, I'm Rich. I love Pokemon, I love Disney, and I talk about both of them. On the investing side, collecting side, numbers. My background's in numbers, and so I love to talk about numbers. And if you're interested in that kind of stuff, make sure to subscribe. But yeah, we are going to be talking about some pretty jaw-dropping news that Disney Lorcana cards are more expensive than Pokemon cards. I've got some data to back me up and some numbers naturally. And so just sit back and enjoy the ride. So when I talk about this, obviously we can't compare the two apples for apples. They're totally different. Pokemon's been around for about 30 years. Lorcana's only been around for 2 years, 2.5 years or something like that. So obviously, if you were to take everything Pokemon related or like the vintage Pokemon, yeah, it's going to be more expensive than Lorcana. But I think Lorcana is incredibly slept on, and I have some numbers to show that. Let's take a look at the SV era. So right here, this chart shows 16 sets all the way from SV base, the very first set, down to Black Bolt and White Flare, which were the last two sets that came out simultaneously. The market price, if you were to just look at every single card, and we're excluding reverse hollows and cold foils, they're basically the same thing for Pokemon Lorcana. It's harder to pull that kind of data, if I'm going to be 100% honest. But $24,441.69 for if you were to buy every single card in the Scarlet and Violet era in Pokemon. That's a lot of money. That's what it costs right now if you were to buy every single card in the SV era. Again, 16 sets. But if we take a look at Lorcana, $16,153.03. So you see that and you're like, hey, Rich, Pokemon's way more expensive, about 50% more expensive than Lorcana. And I would say you are not wrong. But the biggest glaring difference between these two tables is one has 16 sets, one has 9 sets. So if we try to even them out a little bit more, let's take a look at what that is. Oh, before we do that, if we were to look at price per set, so this is, I guess, evening it out. The price per set for Pokemon in the Scarlet Violet era is $1,527.61. And for Lorcana, it's $1,794.78. $250, we'll just round and say $250 more per set for Lorcana versus Pokemon. Let that sink in a little bit. It's pretty crazy to think. Now, if we were to try to even these numbers a little bit, let's take a look at the first sets of the Scarlet and Violet era versus the first 9 sets of Lorcana. So 9 to 9, even ratio, first 9. Obviously, Lorcana is going to have more than 9, but this is the first 9 versus that. Almost 2x. You got 9.1K versus 16.1K in favor of Lorcana. And that's absolutely nuts. You take a look at, on the right side with Lorcana, there's only 2 sets that are below $1,000. Where on the left side for Pokemon, you have Scarlet and Violet base, Obsidian Flames, Paradox Rift, and Temporal Forces, and Shrouded Fable, 5 sets below $1,000. One of which, Obsidian Flames, being under $400, and that's pretty much carried by the regular Charizard SIR and the Gold Charizard. That's kind of weird, and it has its own issues, and everyone knows it, and I don't need to talk about it. But yeah, it's pretty drastic. The first 9 sets of the Scarlet Violet era versus Lorcana. I mean, Pokemon is by far and away the most beloved, and everyone loves it. And there's some pretty good sets in here. Obviously, 151 is one of the best sets in modern era history for Pokemon. I would honestly argue that it's a top 10 set. It's amazing. I have my own master set and like way master set of all the stamped cards and all the like the Costco tin promos, and I will not sell that. That will be the last thing I ever sell if I need to sell everything in my Pokemon or Lorcana collection. But I love that set. I opened most of the packs myself, probably like, or most of the cards myself, probably like 300 plus packs. Way too many packs. I'll just leave it at that. And it's also got Paldean Fates, which is the most expensive of this set of 9 Obviously, it has the Bubble Mew, the Charizard. If you take a look at Lorcana, first chapter is always going to just be one of the more expensive ones because of it being like the very first one, the base set. You can compare it to base set Pokemon, but it's got some amazing cards like Elsa, Tinkerbell, Stitch. And then you have the most recent set in Fabled introducing the new rarity of Iconics, which are incredibly hard to pull. And those cards are going for about $800 and $1,100 right now for the Minnie and Mickey respectively. What if we even this out a little bit? Instead of just the first 9 sets, because people always say, the beginning of a Pokemon era is always bad. The later half is always way better. First off, I'm like, okay, so then Lorcana is going to explode. Like Fable's just kind of starting and it's going to take off from there, which there have been leaks on the new Iconics for the next set. Whispers in the Well. I'm almost positive that's what it is. I should know this. So that's going to be like another $5,000 set maybe, or $4,000. But anyways, let's take a look at the top sets of the Scarlet Violet era. And you can see the numbers are still pretty dang close. It's going to be in Pokemon's favor because you have sets like Prismatic, which have the evolutions, and it's amazing. You have sets like Black Bolt and White Flare that have, I think, 75 plus illustration rares in each set. And illustration rares typically are on average like $5 to $10. And so you're going to get a lot of market price for those sets. But either way, if you take the best sets versus the first sets of Lorcana, Pokemon only edges it out by, I say only, but like 3.8K, which at the end of the day isn't crazy because Ursula's return into the Inklands, those are going to just be lower end sets. And the next 2 sets that come out are going to be much higher. And if they are around that like $4,000 mark, we are going up. Let's say they're $3,000 mark. That 16K is going up to 20K for Lorcana. And so at the end of the day, Lorcana does have higher market value than Pokemon, which, and again, you can look at it in a very unbiased mirror and lens and take a look back at that original slide of Pokemon has 24.4K in the Scarlet Violet era versus Lorcana, or you could try to bring in like Mega Evolutions, but I'm just showing what's out there, like trying to compare eras versus eras. These are the top sets and cards for each Lorcana and Pokemon. Prismatic Evolutions is 4.9K, where Fabled is 5K. So if you look at just the top sets, Lorcana beats that. And if you look at the top, like most expensive card in the SV era versus what's been out so far in Lorcana, and these are raw prices, Mickey Iconic, $1,261.88. The Umbreon EX from Prismatic Evolutions, $1,191.57. So even just comparing the top sets, Lorcana wins. Comparing the top card, Lorcana wins. Case in point, Lorcana is popular. Obviously, the demand is not there like it is with Pokemon, but if there was no demand or people did not want these cards, they would not be going for the price that they're going for right now. Enchanteds would not be on average $100+ per enchanted. These Iconics would not be $1,000 each, on average. People like Lorcana, and that's really the point I'm trying to make with this video, is that obviously I wanted one to prove that the market price of Lorcana, if you take a look at like a per set average, gonna put that caveat, is more expensive than Pokemon in recent Pokemon history with the Scarlet Violet era that just closed. That's the first point I want to make. But 2, Disney Lorcana is alive and well. And if we take a look back at that chart that shows how it's doing every set, you can see that number is climbing, especially the last 4 sets. You go from 1,030 to 1.7K to 2K to 5K. I don't think it's going to grow much bigger than that, but we are going to consistently see sets as long as they release Iconics at that $4,000 to $5,000 mark. And so let me know, do you agree that Pokemon cards, like based off the data I showed, which one's more expensive, do you think? Lorcana or Pokemon? I'm going to stand my ground and say that Lorcana cards are more expensive than Pokemon cards based on the data I showed you today. But again, let me know your thoughts. Until next time, Rich from Rich TCG Bets, and I'll see you all in the next video.